Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday. We are cruising over, do some work. Thought I would check in with y'all. I got a crazy email just the other day, and education is starting to think about or understand or notice that this trend, the transition from just using ChatGPT as an answer provider, students are now looking at how, or there are students, people have the ability with agentic workers that can control your computer and can do things where now people can just provide their login. They could say, hey, I want you to go into my course. I want you to find my assignment. I want you to use this textbook. I want you to do these things. And I want you to answer these questions, do the assignments, submit them. And this email that I got was from a educational group saying, what do we do with agentic AI in education? And it's a good question. I would say, though, that it's great that they're looking ahead. Education is starting to look ahead. It's taken some time for them to jump in to understand that this is going to be part of life, and students are going to have access to these things. People are going to have access to these things, including students. And I feel like the general student population still doesn't even know what agentic software is or agentic AI is. And so understand for education, for them to start to get a handle on it or understand what needs or what is going to have to change in order for us to continue in the age of AI and AI agents as they become easier for people to access, create, interact with. There's automations that have been around, or the ability for people to build automations have been around for a while now, for a couple of years. Actually, some automations have been around for a long time with Zapier and other. Integramate was another automation for social media. And those evolutions of those kind of automations have happened for a while now. But the ability for AI to have access to your computer or through something like computer use, where you can provide Claude, for example, access to your computer and give it full reign with some parameters if you choose, that will really change some things as it becomes more widely used. In my classes 2 years ago, when I first started using AI in the class, and in the first day of class, as we would go through the syllabus, and I would have students create OpenAI ChatGPT accounts, I would ask students, all my students, hey, how many of you guys have heard of ChatGPT or Gemini? At the time, it was just ChatGPT. And how many of you guys have accounts? There were probably about a tenth of the students, maybe 2 years ago. And some of that, I think students were afraid to say that they had accounts, didn't want me to know that they had accounts 2 years ago, even if they've kind of touched it, dabbled in it, got an account. Last year, it was probably about a third of my students had tried ChatGPT, had a ChatGPT account. And so I know this semester, fall semester, It's only about a tenth of my students that have not added ChatGPT, don't have a ChatGPT account, or haven't tried ChatGPT. It's fairly new to them for one reason or another. Either they're, fresh out of high school and they were just absolutely beat up about using AI. And so, one, they're not going to tell me they have it, that they use it. They might be using something else like Snapchat's AI or something different that's a little bit more, off the main LLM stream, even though Snapchat's AI has been around where you could have your own AI Snap person that you could talk to. That was around pretty quickly when ChatGPT came on scene. But this acceptance and use of students is, my guess is in spring it's going to be even more adopted by students, especially as the CSUs and the State Chancellor's Office for California Community Colleges is, taking a stance or a position where they are not only encouraging students, but encouraging their faculty, even mandating their faculty to do AI literacy, more AI integration into their classrooms, helping students understand how to use AI to leverage their skills, creativity, and thinking. And while there isn't any specific guidance from the State Chancellor's Office or even the CSUs, there's tons of conferences, excuse me, tons of conferences. AI is definitely a buzz, right? AI buzzwords are like, they're just a thing. I mean, it's a real everything AI. And in the spectrum of how you could, shouldn't use AI is very broad. It's really the reason why I spent so much time trying to create a framework within my classes to make sure that students have some kind of plan, some kind of reference when doing work, and understanding that AI is going to be a part of that. In the second episode of the podcast, AI Literacy Movement, that just went up on my YouTube channel, we talked about, one of the teachers, math instructors, talked about how they were creating a ton of questions, study questions, and they were using AI, ChatGPT, to help them create these math questions. And initially it wasn't very good at them, and now it's gotten so much better as they've continued to prompt and continue to give it feedback. And the epiphany that happened with this math instructor was that as he was doing those things, creating these questions and doing that, he said, he was also taking a course from an instructor that he's going to be teaching in the future as they retire. And he realized that he started asking ChatGPT to help him understand and help him to be able to provide, having the AI provide some instruction. How could he teach this better, right? And what he learned was, or what this whole epiphany was, that in his classes, instead of him providing all the questions, if he provided prompts for the students so that they could use AI to help them do the study. In my classes, this has happened as well. For psychology, instead of giving just study guides, I'm having students use guided learning with Gemini and providing them with example prompts so that they are able to do the studying with a tutor, a personalized tutor, a one-on-one tutor, so that they are going to be studying with them and speaking to students about this, whether they're using Gemini or whether they're using Notebook LM and they're putting in a study guide that we have, because we do still have study guides. I still have study guides available, but they're putting those study guides into Notebook LM and they're asking them questions. Usually we would have a study session where they would bring in questions from the study guide if they had questions about specific answers, why they didn't understand them, or they got an answer incorrect and they were trying to figure those things out. We would go through them as a class. And now when we go through those as a class, there's far less questions because they have gone through these questions with their study partner, which has now been AI. What I do, though, it's changed a little bit because now the study partner is AI and they have gotten these answers. So then when they're in the study session, they're with other students. And when other students haven't maybe asked those questions or have gone through that study part with the AI, those students are now sitting with other students in groups and saying, oh, you had a question about number 2? So did I. I went through it with our AI assistant through guided learning, and here's what I found. Here's where I found it. Here's what it means. Here's an example. And as I'm listening, as I'm walking around through the study session, helping to answer some questions, going through that, even going deeper than what the book is providing, what the text is providing that they're being tested on, I am seeing and hearing students with far more answers than questions. And it's transitioning in our tests where and our tests are not online at home tests where, again, they could have their phone open and they can have other things where they can use assistance. This is an in-class test, and it's really a memorization test. I mean, there's still a component of a memorization in education that we are asking them to memorize information and then be able to call that information upon asking a question on demand. Really, can you remember a bunch of this information? Can you then tell me this information on demand? And we associate that with learning. They've learned it because they've memorized it. And so that's still a thing. And that's going to be a thing, I think, for a little while. And there's always going to be some component of memorization, whether now we're going to have students memorize prompts so that they can get output. It may be not just specific facts, but they will need to memorize or understand or be able to recall concepts, vocabulary, words in order to use prompting well. So I'm still doing memorization tests. I mean, they're multiple choice tests. They don't show necessarily a deep understanding or learning, but they do show if the students have or are able to memorize some answers. Now, in my multiple choice tests, they're not all vocabulary words. I try to incorporate as many real world life applications or applied questions, like word problems, for example, or word problems specifically, so that they have to know what the concept is, but also be able to apply it. And in those situations, for those kind of questions, those are a lot of what we do in class. We are talking about vocabulary words, but we're trying to apply them in real life. And by applying them in real life, and coming up with scenarios, not just me coming up with scenarios, but having students coming up with some scenarios, sharing those scenarios across with other groups or with other students. They're thinking about what those scenarios are, and they have to be creative. They have to critically think about the information. They have to be able to apply it. And then I'm going around making sure that they are applying those scenarios correctly. But we're also using AI as the first level of verification, first level of iteration, first level of brainstorming, first level of those things with example prompts. I'm providing example prompts for students to be able to answer some questions in order to continue down in depth of learning. Where do we start? And not all students start at the same place. Believe it or not all our students are reading our textbooks. Even though they're free, they're not reading them for one reason or another. And maybe, again, as an educator, I look at, well, are they not reading them because I'm not using that information enough, or not making them have to have that information enough? I've changed our course in the class so that we're doing more activities that require the information from the textbook in here. And I know it might be contradictive if I'm saying, hey, I use AI and the book is in the custom GPT and they can ask it all the questions. They can, and they should. But by asking those questions and getting a response, they still need to read the response, and they still need to understand that response so they can apply it. And by doing those things, when we're in the classroom and I'm asking questions specifically, almost like bringing back the Socratic method, where I'm asking a question and you need to respond to me without AI in the classroom. We need to have discussions without AI in the classroom in certain parts of our assignment, in order to make sure that students have not only asked the questions and received a response, but are now interacting with that response in a way to make them critically think about what the response was, doing a verification of making sure that response is accurate. And if it is accurate or isn't accurate, why? How does it relate to what they've read or a video we've watched in class? How does that relate? The classes have become way more interactive. And, we're teaching by them talking to each other. I heard a crazy statistic that says that most men from 19 to 20 years old have never actually asked a person out face to face. They either do it through text or through instant message or through some kind of app or something. They haven't walked up to a female and said, hey, do you want to go out? Another video I watched said the females were saying, I can go to a bar and men won't come up to us. They don't even come to talk to us. And, growing up when I was younger, that was never the case. I mean, most females had to beat males off with a stick when they were at a bar. So there's definitely a change in face-to-face interaction with humans. I hear, teachers all the time telling me that students don't know how to have conversations. I think that's pretty indicative of stuff that's going on in the world. Having a conversation, not agreeing in a conversation that is face to face. It escalates so quickly when we have people that don't agree, and it becomes an argument, not a conversation. Where in a conversation, you may not agree, and that's okay. And that's part of understanding different perspectives. But and I guess, not all arguments are hostile. However, I feel like the emotional side of things, when we become face to face, the lack of eye contact, things that are happening where our young people have, many of them, almost all of them, who have been students for the last 5 years, have gone through COVID. They've had a virtual educational environment. They've spent time behind a screen. They communicate with their peers on Discord or on gaming or through apps. And they spend a lot less time interacting face to face. And so those skills to be able to read the room, understanding the different tones that are appropriate in conversation and what they mean, are definitely skills that in education we are going to have to start focusing on and teaching. Not throwing out the tenets of the course, the outcomes of what we want them to learn, but now doing it in a way where we are emphasizing the things that are hard for students to do, or harder for students to do nowadays, because they just don't do them as much. And conversation is one of them. In fact, a lot of times in my classes, we have them partner up, especially at the beginning of class. And in that first week or so, students will just start talking. And I have to remind them, if you're sitting and you're going to be working with somebody you've never worked with before, introduce yourself first. Let them know who you are, which to me just is a natural thing to do. If I've met somebody, or I'm sitting there, I'm going to have a conversation with them, I'm sitting at their table and we're going to have a conversation, the first thing I would do is say, "Hi, I'm Alan." They would say whatever their name is. So, I don't know if you're experiencing something similar to that as a teacher. Is there a gap? Is there a conversational deficiency in our students? And if there is, shouldn't we focus on making sure that they're able to interact human to human? I know that, again, it could be hypocritical for me to say, look, you're going to have to know how to work with AI. You're going to have to know the skills. You're going to have to know how to prompt. You're going to have to know how it works. You're going to have to use it. You're going to have to do all those things to leverage you as a human in the world. And then to also say, but you also got to be able to know how to deal with humans. Humans have got to be able to deal with humans. In fact, Gary Vee said in an interview that there's going to be a time in the not so distant future where people are going to pay for human to human interaction, for you just to sit on a park bench and have a conversation, human to human. Because there's going to be so much AI created content, AI interaction. Elon Musk said in an interview with Joe Rogan that at some point you're not going to need social media, you're not going to need, or you're not even going to have all of these things. You might not even have a technical Gmail account that you're going to go look for, because all you're going to do is interact with AI and say, did anybody send me a message? Or it's going to tell you, hey, you got a message from this person. And you're going to be able to say, good, great. Can you respond in affirmative? Can you respond this way? And it will. Hey, I want to watch a movie about this. And it's going to show up. I want to create this. It's going to just be created in a way. I know I say it very simply and simplistically, but in his view about how AI is going to be integrated into our society as a whole, the I mean, again, this is very big picture, I guess, or extreme. It's an extreme. Don't want to freak anyone out. But these are the we're going in this direction, and I have tons of people in my comments for sure that'll say, yes, this is happening and it's going to destroy the world, and it might. I don't know. I can't tell you if it is or isn't. I just know I want to be prepared. I have a lot of people who are talking about, doomsday, and they prepare for that, and they get totally prepared. They bought, tons of food. It's been stored, or they can store it for 10 years or 20 years. They have, they bought batteries and they bought generators and they have all this stuff. Well, I also want to be prepared, at least by understanding what is going on, so that I can navigate in that environment as it continues to evolve. And it's evolving fast. I mean, I would say for anyone who is, worried, find some people that you can, especially on social media, that you can find that are not only talking about AI, but are actually doing things with AI, that are challenging models, that understand the space. Maybe some people who have been in the tech space, that have built things with AI, that are in your industry using AI. I think following those people, listening to what they say, and then not only just listening, but actually trying to do some of those things with AI, will allow you to have greater understanding, which will give you this better foundation for you to make decisions as the world continues to evolve. It's going to happen. There's no, it's happening. It's not going to happen. It's happening. It's been happening. And for one, whether good, bad, ugly, all of the above, we are moving quickly into a new world where human to human contact is going to be, in my opinion, based on the people I follow and trust, human to human contact is going to be more important. And if you didn't know, the biggest predictor of longevity for humans is really human to human contact. How many friends, how many close relationships that do you have? Those relationships, when they studied people, centurions, they looked at their life, and it wasn't necessarily just about what they ate or how much they exercised. It was about the one thing they had in common was they had close-knit relationships. And some of that could be within religion, some could be just in family, some could be just friends, some have to do with work. But they had relationships that were very important to them, and they had a group of people that they associated with that were very important to them. So human to human contact, we're herd animals by nature. So we want people. And that's why education, I don't think it'll change in its current format, but college will change in a way where the human to human contact is going to be more valued, and it is going to be driven by human to human contact, because that is where you're going to get it, because you're not going to get it at home in most cases, because you're going to be using computers, AI, whatever. And so it's going to be a place where young minds can go, young and old minds can go and have some synergy with humans and that part is going to be the college experience. It's not going to be necessarily just about the facts and figures and the assessments of knowledge. It's going to be about interacting with humans, creativity, using and leveraging the technical skills, technical software, technical ability, the tech, and maybe more hyper centered on a specific industry, but cohorts of students working through different disciplines. And colleges may change to be more career technical specific. And I think, this understanding of why we do what we do is going to be very, very important. Psychology is one of the most popular majors, and people are saying, all the time, well, you can't do anything with a psychology major. Well, that maybe in a BA, maybe right now, but understanding human behavior is going to be important as we try to connect more with humans, not less. And not because we necessarily have to, but because we will want to have experiences going to places where there's other humans, where we can connect and we can have that human to human connection.